Hello, everybody. Welcome to the pre-show of the Nails Racing Endurance Championship. This is season 2, first race. And Welsh is going to join me for this pre-show. So, good evening, Welsh.
Good evening, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show.
So, we're just going to talk a little bit about the track, some of the notable incidents from history, things like that. Going to try and get a few people in, talk about how they've prepped for the race, how they're thinking about the race. Hopefully we'll just get on with that. So obviously today we're going to use the chicanes layout rather than a historic layout, because here a GT screaming for its life halfway down the Mulsanne Straight. So what are you looking forward to today, Welsh?
I'm looking forward to the battles in GT3 actually, because it's been pretty close all season. And it'll be interesting to see if Corey can continue his winning streak from last season, where he did quite well.
Yeah, Corey was a beast. Unfortunately, he had a bad ring coming out of the just onto the straight, losing it on the grass, wrecking his.
Oh,
he
no!
Is rapid. He is so rapid.
Yeah. Oh, excellent! And then it'll be interesting as well to see how if the LMP2s catch the GT3s in the Dunlop and Ford curves. How are they going to negotiate those?
It's always an exciting test when you get some multi-class racing, tight.
Yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. What's
the point of racing if it's not keeping you on the edge of the seat?
Or over the edge sometimes.
So we're just going to look into getting Bruce in very soon, I think. Obviously, the action zones here are going to be gains if there's some close racing. The drag is really good here. So there'll be a lot of catching on that Mulsanne Straight.
Yeah, and it's going to be important to get a good exit out of Tetra Rouge as well, which is the right-hander that leads to it. Because every mile an hour you carry there, you'll carry all the way down the Mulsanne.
Yeah, it's also got to watch out for the off tracks on Tetra Rouge. If you just try and get that too much speed and you get a slow down, it can really kill you.
Yeah.
I think one of my most hated corners is probably Arnage, because it's just it's tight, but there's a lot of speed to gain from that.
Yeah. I always struggle with the Mulsanne corner at the end of the straight, because you've got a slight right-hander and you want to break in a straight line, but you also want to leave the braking as late as you dare. So
yeah, it's about if you get that rotation perfectly aligned, so you can kind of diagonal on the brakes, you can push the boat out a little bit. But if you go even 10 mile an hour too quick, we're going in the gravel.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. And the car's interesting as well, because last season we didn't have the Porsche 911 GT3, so we do have that this year as well, and the Porsche 911 RSR as well. So there are 2 new cars in for this season's championship, other than the others as well.
So I can say the Porsche RSR has 2 mile an hour top speed deficit to the BMW. It still puts out 520 horsepower in that flat 6 engine. But you're gonna have to worry about them long straights. Can the BMW just gain a sizable advantage?
Yeah, and the BMW as well. It always has been quick in a straight line, hasn't it? And it's been described previously as a car that's very hard to spin, although somehow I've managed it. I've spun pretty much every car in iRacing.
It's never been hard to spin in my hands.
But I think that's more of a heavy right foot than anything else, really. But
yeah, you kind of have to balance the braking and the acceleration too quick. Being a front engine car, obviously, under braking, you've got a very light rear end.
Yes, and on the flip side of that, I don't know if it's in this season, the Mercedes, you've got a very heavy lump at the front.
No, it's not in IMSA, I'm afraid.
Well, there we go. Let's not talk about the Mercedes then.
in the GT3, we have the Lambo, the M4, and the Porsche 911 VR.
Yeah.
Realize I wrote it down my notes. I have 2 RSRs racing in this race, apparently.
Oh, excellent. Some brave individuals out there.
So let's see if we can get Bruce in. I know I think he's on track now. Yeah, he's on track. He's just got on the Mulsanne. You guys at home can't see it. We're not showing practice on broadcast. Is Bruce? Yeah, is it? It's Bruce. How's your prep been going, Bruce? Like, how did you prepare for this? Might be AFK microphone.
No, just muted. Sorry, the old trying to be nice to your friends button. How are Jack, Welsh boy? So what I have been doing is an interesting contrast to the Mount Panorama Enduro that we did in the V8. So for the V8, it was broken down into definitely a couple of phases. One was learn the car, get comfortable with the car, because that thing is just crazy. Very familiar with the track already from just some various races that we've done as part of the Snail community. So then it was more a case of just be comfortable that I could do that track combo with 0Xs. So coming to Le Mans, which is a track I had never driven before prepping for this race, was very, very different. So the first challenge with Le Mans, it's a massive track. It's about a 4-minute lap, 3 and a 3-minute 45, I think is the top pace in the GT class. So it takes a long time to go around. So if you miss the first chicane and you want to do it again, it's in 3 minutes to sort of get back there. So there's a couple of tricks that I do. First thing, which I actually haven't done for a while, but I did for this event, is I went and turned the good old racing line back on to make sure that getting that racing line back in. I've been privileged enough to do the Driver 61 training, so I know how important vision and the line is. So that's the first thing. The second thing is looking at this particular track. It's very much characterized by the Mulsanne straight and the very long straights. So then focusing on exits. So focusing getting my corner exits right. And then, okay, now I've got my exits. How do I get to the exits? I think that's pretty much the prep. The other thing which is peculiar to iRacing's implementation of this track is there's basically no off tracks. It's all slowdowns. So that is just horrendously painful. So trying to avoid those has also been a focus.
What would you say out of all of the parts on the track, you've been your most difficult to learn at Le Mans?
It was definitely the Porsche curves. So I think I know as a habit I tend to try and overdrive too much, and the Porsche curves are very much a slow in, fast out type of arrangement. Particularly, there's one sort of curve as you sort of come. I think it's from out of the Porsche curves into the Corvette curves, coming into the chicanes, constantly over coming in way too hot. So that for me, getting that flow has been a real struggle. And to be honest, I hated the track until I got that flow right. And once you started to find that flow, started to like the track a lot more.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. You have to get that perfectly out because, like you said, so many slowdowns.
Yeah, that just makes it quite painful.
What are your thoughts, Welsh?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Bruce, how did you get into sim racing in the first place?
That old story. Look, I've been playing most of the F1 games. The Jeff Crammond games started out back when he was an Amiga guy riding with Stunt Car Racer back in the 90s. And so sort of grew up sort of doing that, coming in, but doing it seriously. I'm a lockdown kid, if that makes sense. So sort of discovered iRacing for the first time last year during lockdown in Australia, and sort of been slowly getting deeper and deeper into the hobby ever since.
Yeah, I think lockdown is when the financial black hole started. Sim racing in general.
Yeah, and companies like Fanatec suddenly started making a lot of money.
So the financial black hole opened, but the wallet black hole began. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, yeah. Like I just constantly need more things upgrade here and there.
But And there's some things that, and I've definitely gone down that rabbit hole. There's definitely some things that I've found immensely better. And having sort of push a mute all button, which might kill you. No, it didn't. Just got some in-race comms going on. It's for me, the biggest upgrade, I think, from an experience point of view, not necessarily a speed point of view, has been moving to the VRS pedals. So it's my sort of third set of pedals. I went from the Logitech pedals to some super cheap Fanatec entry-level load cells, and that was a step up. But moving to these VRS direct force pedals has just been phenomenally better. It actually feels like a car. Now I'm actually running, I think, 120 kilo spring on the brake. So that really has helped my braking immensely.
Yeah, so I've been looking into that to you a little bit. A lot different. Pedals in sim racing is probably the most important upgrade to do. From
I'd say
entry-level
behind
pedals.
having a rig, because if you don't have a rig, you've got nowhere to bolt them to.
Yeah,
I'd say rig first, pedal second, I would say.
I think in terms of time gain, pedals are I know you, like you say, bolt it too, but for the performance.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think everyone says, pedals and gear doesn't make you faster. I actually challenge that. Would like to challenge that, right? So gear and pedals makes you more consistent, and race wins doesn't come from fastest single lap. It comes from consistency and lowest average speed. So the who wins the race is the person with the lowest average speed. So if you have better gear that lowers your overall average speed, then you're faster, you win more. The other thing too is if you enjoy sim racing more and enjoy being in your rig or at your desk or whatever you are, then you're more likely to want to get in and practice.
I just realized, I think we're missing someone from the league. Welsh, I'll let you take over for a second.
Okay. So Bruce, I know you're a proud Aussie. What would you say is your favourite track? I mean, is it really Oran Park?
You didn't expect that answer. No, look,
I expected Bathurst, if I'm honest.
Of course you did, which is why I threw you the curveball. I think everyone has, particularly if you've actually been to tracks in real life, you have a soft spot for them. Bathurst is amazing. There's no doubt about that. And particularly once you get to know it, it's crazy. And we sort of, as kids, literally grew up once a year, spending a whole Sunday watching that race. So, and it's part of Australian history. But the reason why I say Oran Park is every time I actually race on that track in iRacing, it gives me memories of actually going to that track and actually being in the grandstand, top left, watching, the V8 supercars. I don't think it was supercars. Yeah, it was actually all Group A. It was supercars with my brother, where you could be in that grandstand and see the whole track. That track doesn't exist anymore.
It's a housing estate or something, isn't it?
It's now a housing estate, which is sort of happens more and more around the world. So that's why I think definitely have a soft spot for Oran Park as well. But yeah, Bathurst is the favourite. There's no question about that. Yeah. And I think if you look at every Aussie when they join iRacing and their purchase history, Bathurst is probably the first thing they buy.
I was scared of Bathurst when I watched different YouTubers and things. It just looked like a terrified.
It's interesting. A lot of people are afraid of street circuits. And to be honest, in real life, I would be scared shitless as well. There's no question about that. But when it comes to sim racing, and particularly on iRacing, unless you do a big miss an apex and nose into a wall, it's actually safer from a safety rating point of view and a getting around the track point of view on a street circuit, because you'll get lots of 0x's if you do a wall scrape, but you actually won't go off and get that off track. So it's interesting. So I really definitely have a soft spot for street circuits when it comes to iRacing, except for that fakey one which came out, which is a bit crazy, which is Chicago. That's a bit strange. But yeah, I definitely have a soft spot for Belle Isle and places like that as well, and Bathurst, of course.
Belle Isle is a fantastic circuit. Very well.
Yep. I was going to say, what advice would you have, Bruce, for someone looking to get into iRacing?
The first one is have fun. I know I lose sight of that. That's probably the most important thing. But the second thing is it's a journey, right? So there are people that come in and beyond the pace very, very quickly, but it's definitely a journey. I think to be fast in iRacing is probably actually faster than club racing in a real car in real life. An example I can quickly give is my local mechanic has actually raced at Bathurst in real life in production cars. When he did his first race in the wet, he literally had one 30-minute practice session. So that's like 5 laps of the track. So the fact that I'm able to do 1,000 kilometers or 1,000 laps of Bathurst before, which is 6,000 Ks, before I go in and do an enduro, it's adds this whole artificial element, and it's easy to get lost in that. So I think, basically just have fun. I think is probably the biggest piece of advice, because at the end of the day, it is a game. I know people want to think of it as a sim, but it is a game.
So how have you been finding the Chevy Corvette, or the Chevy Holden, as you like to call it?
Holden. So the reason why I call it a Holden is because a lot of the V8s the V8s did run a Chevy-based NASCAR engine, and so what you would see in Australia is Chevy badges started going on Holdens when they had Chevy engines or LSA engines in them. So that's a bit of an in-joke for me. I'm actually finding it quite good, to be honest. I find it difficult performance-wise to separate between GTE across the GTE. So the Porsche versus, which I raced last time out at Sebring, versus the GTE. It's just a nice car. It's I think on paper I felt a little bit like it was faster in a straight line compared to the other GTEs. It's not. But it's just well balanced. It's just sort of nice to get in and drive. And to be honest, it's a shame that you can't run this car in more series.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty much limited to ESS next.
Well,
I'm sorry, once the changes come in to IMSA, I think it's next season.
Especially given as it's such a new car. Like, it's actually, just on a year old now, or even less,
I think
being on the
it's a
service?
2020 entry to iRacing at least. But I think that was 2020 in real life.
Yeah, so that's sort of interesting.
It's a beautiful car. I love the exterior model of the exterior.
And if you're really interested, there's a YouTube channel. I forget her name, but James May roasted her version of this car.
Supercar Blondie?
Yeah, no, not Supercar Blonde. It's an actual person who owns and modifies this car. She's getting, I think, 1,200 horsepower out of it. So it's just ridiculous.
How much?
How fast she's got this thing? 1,200 horsepower.
That's like 700 more than its stock in a race environment.
It's street legal, so it's double V8 supercar race car horsepower out of a street car, basically.
That is insane.
Yep.
Because the race version, it's a 5.5 liter V8, but it only produces 500 brake horsepower series.
Yeah, and that's a dyno pull too. So that's actually on a dyno at the rear wheels, not a flywheel in a engine dyno. It's actually a rear wheel dyno. So it's got all the traction loss in it as well. It's ridiculous.
Bruce, do you have any plans to do some real life racing at some point?
Nope. I value my life. But I also value my bank balance. Look, to be honest, my local mechanic invited me. He said, look, next time we go to Bathurst, you should definitely come. But they aren't allowed to take us around on passenger rides around the mountain because the good old Australian Racing Drivers Association doesn't let that for some crazy reason. I can't think what that would be. Look, to be honest, as expensive as sim racing is, I keep thinking, whatever you spend on a rig is probably the price of 4 tyres in real life. So I'm more than happy to keep my sim racing virtual, apart from jumping in the odd go-kart maybe. I might do a track day in a like a Formula Ford or something at some point, but actual real racing, nah. My time for and my amount of time I have is spent when it comes to doing that sort of thing.
I'd love to do a couple of track days, I think, get around. But
because I think if you actually were to try and own this sort of car in real life, like a Ferrari or this sort of car in real life, it's actually really painful and really expensive. So you're actually probably better off spending a few $1,000s and actually doing a track day in this sort of car or a Ferrari or a Lambo, whatever you want to do, instead of saving, buying up and trying to deal with parking and cleaning and all that sort of stuff. Spend way less, actually go and do a track day and actually really enjoy the car and its potential in the environment the way it was meant to be enjoyed. I think you'd get far more enjoyment than doing that than you would.
Ryan and I were chatting about going halves in an MX-5 and doing some racing in it.
Yeah,
which is always dangerous.
There's definitely cheap ways to get into racing. There's no question about that. There definitely is. But I think it's from, I do a lot of sailing where we design and build boats as part of development class. And it's very, very easy to just go down this rabbit hole where you start spending $8,000. Then some people spend $30, $50, $60, $100,000, particularly when semi-pros and pros get involved.
Well, people do that with their sim racing rigs as well, don't they? Because
Of course they
I've just got £100 wheel stand, a fishing chair, and a Logitech G29, and that's it.
Yeah,
I'm not commenting on that.
So I think and that's the beauty about sim racing, right? The entry level is really, really low. And to be honest, the iRacing subscription costs way more than a lot of the entry level hardware does. So that's the hardware is not the cost at the entry level.
True.
But actually, just one quick thing about Bathurst. I don't know if it's true, but is it like I know to stop people racing around it normal road? Is it true that there's like 1,000 streets everywhere?
So there never used to be speed cameras at the mountain, and it's basically I'd have a friend who has lost her Honda something and she had to dig it out of the gravel pit one evening. That is definitely a thing. But the problem with Bathurst is, as you say, it's a 60-kilometre-an-hour speed limited public access road because people live there. So it's a normal street. That's why it's actually classified as a street circuit, because it is a normal set of streets. And if you live, just up Mountain Straight or up Conrod Straight, you don't want to have to drive 6 k's to get to your house, right? So you go onto the circuit and there's one entry road in or out, and you sort of turn left. So they definitely put speed cameras in because this is Australia, and our police love to make money from people that want to throw it away in speeding. And they literally
It's in the UK too.
Yeah, they put speed cameras on Conrod Straight. So I think the other thing about Conrod Straight is if you're in a road car, you basically have to be on your brakes all the way down the straight to stay at the speed limit because it is basically just steep downhill straight. So it's even a challenge just to do that. But yeah, what they want to stop is people come from Sydney driving up and going crazy around the mountain when someone could be going the other way to get into their house. It's really, really important. The other thing too is there's one way in and out of the mountain. So all they have to do is park a police car at the exit and park another one up the top and just wait, and they can see you being stupid with a radar gun. And as you go to drive out of the mountain, there's no way to escape. So it's very
Or they
easy.
just time you and go, not a bad lap, here's a ticket.
Well, you just think about it, right? All you need to do is, because there's a whole separate set of access roads to get to the spectator areas at the top. So they just have to drive up the back, sit there with the speed gun, watch you go ripping across the top. It's a 60 k an hour zone, so you only need to be doing 15 k's over the limit, and it's $1,000, $2,000 fine.
Wow.
So, and if you're doing, I think, more than 30 k's over the limit, it's goodbye license. So, yeah, it's not very hard to do.
Oh,
my car just blew up in pit lane.
Oh dear.
Anyway, Bruce, as much as it's been fantastic to hear from you and you, we are going to have to end the interview.
Yes,
with you
I can see you have a crowd of people waiting. Good to chat, gentlemen, and I will see you out on track.
All right, see you on track. Good luck with your practice.
Goodbye. Thanks, see you, mate.
Bye. So I don't know if there's enough time to get another person in, but, since this show only has 5 more minutes, maybe we'll just grab someone. Simple Geek.
Yeah.
Grab Simple Geek.
Stay with me.
Him.
Hello, Simple Geek.
Hello there.
How are you?
Not too bad, actually.
Just so you know, I introduced a rule that if you shout and scare your girlfriend, it's minus 10 points.
Not a chance. She's right behind me. I've already told her I'll be careful.
It was great watching your VOD back.
Yeah. How's practice going?
It's not too bad. Been doing a fair bit this week, so I'm pretty comfortable with the car, but depends on how the race is going to go. That could be a completely different ballpark. Oh, and I just locked up there.
We sort of got lost listening to speak about Australian speed cameras. So this isn't going to be as long as we planned originally.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it that you feel you're strongest on this track? I know you're in an LMP straights, isn't it?
It's an hard one to call because this track has always been a tricky one for me. Like especially the chicanes on the Mulsanne, and also when you get to the Porsche curves. Probably the strongest bit is probably coming into Indianapolis, but it's a tricky one. This track, it's like the whole track's hard. In essence, to be a fast on.
Like in the LMP, I've always found I've damaged the car so much in the final like 2 chicanes before you get to the start finish line. Like if you damage your floor, you can people.
Oh yeah, it's so easy to do. I've found it on numerous tracks that one little bit of damage you can lose at least a few seconds, and around there, it's a lot. Well, it can be a lot.
So how confident are you feeling about a podium?
Oh, it's a tough one. Expectation-wise, with the pace of all the other guys around me, top 5 I'll be happy with, but it's a tricky one to call, especially 2-hour long race. Anything can happen.
Yeah, one of them things with a mixed field can go really well, or you can just get one bad piece of luck and lose it.
Yeah, especially on that last race I had. If I just took a slightly different line, I could have won that one race easily.
Yeah, we were good for you in the booth.
Yeah.
You raced fantastically. You kept it in the contention for the top. Obviously, Corey unfortunately crashed out at, just halfway through, I think it was.
I think it was just before my first pit stop.
That's about 44 minutes.
About 18 laps in.
Yeah. It was really unfortunate for Corey, and he didn't really recover, and I think he left after that.
His iRacing disconnected him, didn't it?
Actually, yeah.
He got disconnected.
Yeah, he got fully kicked from the session. I remember him jumping in afterwards.
Yeah. Which was a shame, because it was shaping up to be a good battle.
Yes, it was really fun battle, especially only managing to keep me at most 10 seconds behind him before the point he disconnected.
So how have you been dealing with traffic? You reckon you're confident of getting past traffic and know where to do it?
Yeah, I've done a previous endurance races around there, so it's just basically, if you can't get around the corners, just wait till the straights.
Yeah, I think what you have to do is be smart in some races. It's 2 hours, it's not 10 minutes. Patience is often key, especially when you're a faster class.
Mm-hmm. And another hardest point is overtake is around the fourth cut, the chicanes on the floor.
How would you try and overtake that?
Just wait.
I know, like, some people really don't. I was watching a friend of mine, and there was just LMP sending it right before entry. It was just stupid. It came to blows a couple. But thank you for dropping in. It's been really nice to talk to you.
No problem.
We wish you the best of luck. I know you said you're unavailable during the race, unfortunately. But enjoy your race. Get good with practice, and we will see you after the race or whenever on Discord.
Yeah, it'll probably be after the race.
Yeah. Oh, yep.
Thank you very much. So that pretty much wraps up the pre-show now. What we're going to do is go to a break for 15 minutes, and then we'll be back with the full race broadcast. So please come, stick around, go get a drink, go get some food, snacks to watch this broadcast. Zach will be with us by the time we get back, and we will see you in 15.